industry-leading genetics, extensive local breeding and testing, top-performing products. Developed specifically for your field. Visit pioneer.com/what's next to learn more.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Hello and welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. It is Wednesday. I am Lyndsey Smith, and well, the world is just a little topsy-turvy this week, so we have a very special treat for you. Today is the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. Yes, it's a day early, and that's because Sean is going to have a special on-location show for you tomorrow. But in the meantime, we've got the Farmer Rapid Fire a day early. And this is one of my favorite shows, and of course, one of the favorite shows of our audience as well. So there you go. We get it a day early. On today's show, you're going to hear from Tyler Lester out of Ontario, Murray Froebe out of Manitoba. We have Jim Wickett out of Saskatchewan, and we've got John Guelly out of Alberta. And then at the end of the show, we're going to hear from Greg Stops here in Ontario, and we are definitely going to be talking tar spot and planning for 2025. All right, without further ado, let's hop to it. We're going to head now to Prince Edward County in Ontario and talk to Tyler Lester. Joining me now for the Farmer Rapid Fire, it's Tyler Lester. He's at Bloomfield, Ontario. Sounds like, Tyler, you might be on the road.
Oh, we're trucking corn today.
All right. Okay.
Harvest is over, and now it's time to empty out the grain bins.
Okay, so we have been hearing from quite a few people, especially in Ontario, that with the corn all kind of coming off at the same time and really good yields, it has been challenging, to say the least, to move corn. Have you found that in Prince Edward County?
Absolutely. I've never combined a corn crop like this before.
Wow. So, like, lifetime highs?
Oh, yes. I have run combine for 30 years now, and I have never seen anything like this.
Wow. So what do you think really, like, contributed to, because I think we all were a little concerned early on, but the fall really turned everything around. What added up for your crop that you think has contributed to the great yield?
There were some variety selections available this year that are, in the trials that I've combined, these varieties have been head and shoulders above everything else.
Wow.
We got timely weather. We could have basically timed our rains once a week. We got a half an inch to an inch of rain once a week until about the middle of September.
And then it was like warm and dry.
And it was warm otherwise.
Okay.
So all the stars aligned, and we had a perfect season here.
That is amazing. Now, I mean, pretty fantastic. How did the soybeans do?
Our soybeans were better than average, but not anything like the corn crop.
Mm-hmm. And did you have any white mold issues, or is that not something you typically deal with?
We don't typically have that issue here. Small pockets, spots in the odd field the size of the hood of a pickup truck. And that would be it. And it's very rare to see anything like that in this area.
Mm-hmm. Now, so trucking corn, we do wish the prices were better, but at least you've got yield.
I'll take $200 corn. I have no major complaints with $200 corn. I mean, it could always be better.
Right.
I'd rather it was $300 corn.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah.
It's a lot better than $90 corn.
That is 100% accurate. Yeah, absolutely. Now, but have you had, we have been hearing some logistics issues, though, of some slow movement maybe, but that's not something you're dealing with, or are you managing okay through that?
So far, we've been playing musical elevators here. We've got 3 elevators that we deal with regularly, and so far, one of them has been able to receive crop every day of the week.
Nice.
So when one of them backs up, we just move to the next one.
Yeah. Nice to have options. Not everybody does.
It is.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Yeah. Now, Tyler, I think it's been a little while since I've talked to you, at least on the Farmer Rapid Fire. Can you tell our audience a bit about Bloomfield? It is, as the name suggests, a beautiful part of Ontario.
It is a beautiful part of the world here. We've got the sandy beaches of the Sandbanks Park within a short bicycle ride. We've got the Millennium Trail to walk and ride and cycle down, which is an old rail line that's been decommissioned and turned into a public trail that cuts across the middle of the county here. It's a beautiful spot to be, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Which is why what happens to your population in the summer? Like, does it triple? Does it?
Oh,
yeah.
It's ridiculous here. In the summertime, when the tourist season comes, it's absolutely ridiculous. We've got a new wine country in the area over the last 10 or 20 years that has significantly blossomed here, and it draws in the tourists. There's lots of nice places to come and stay, and bed and breakfasts, and there's some small hotels here that are nice to stay at. There's the beaches, as I've said. There's fishing, there's hunting, there's antiquing. I think we mentioned that the last time we spoke. There's lots of interesting spots to stop and interesting people to talk to. And the weather here is pretty reable most of the time.
Most of the time. So that brings me, of course, to thinking about, moving all this corn. How have you noticed an improvement in trying to farm around all these tourists, or are there challenges every year?
Oh, no. No, it becomes more and more challenging all the time. Issues with non-farming road users become more and more eye-opening all the time. Mm-hmm. From inebriated bicycle users to people who just are not used to farm equipment on the road and are unaware of how it moves, how big it is, how slow it is. Just a complete lack of understanding of how to share the road with that type of machinery. Very, very challenging moving equipment here.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, it stresses me out, and I'm not the one doing it. I do have a question of the week.
Sure.
And so we've talked about amazing corn, pun fully intended. Looking to 2025, though, I mean, we can't tell the weather, but which would be your, at least for budgets for 2025, which crop looks to be the winner as far as profitability? Not yield, profitability.
Looking at prices for next year, I'm going to have to say my money's going to be on soybeans for profitability for next year.
All right. Okay. You heard it here first, folks. Okay. We'll leave it at that. I'm interested. I'm not going to dig into why, because I'm trying to get a feel for what people are thinking. And then we'll go from there and we'll see where that goes. But Tyler, thank you so much for joining me here on the Farmer Rapid Fire.
Thank you, Lyndsey.
We are now going to hop to a quick break, and I'll be back with more of the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, right here on RealAg Radio, right after this. I'm Lyndsey Smith, joining me with Genesis Fertilizers, Terry Draboot. So thinking about where things are priced from, but also where things potentially travel from, how does Genesis Fertilizers' proposed model address the logistical challenges?
There is very little product that comes from NOLA that hits Canada, mainly Ontario and Manitoba. NOLA is New Orleans, Louisiana, as I suspect most would know that. But if it does, it comes from the river, Mississippi, up to, say, St. Louis, into a transfer terminal, into a rail car, into a distribution house in Canada, and then distributed to retails. So lots of touch points and lots of costs. Genesis Fertilizers plans on building one plant, and that one plant is for Western Canadian farmers. Not only would the investors be entitled to the fertilizer that we produce, they would also profit from the fertilizer plant.
For anyone who's interested, how Genesis Fertilizers plans to deliver this, where can they go?
The best place is our website, genesisfertilizers.com.
I'm Lyndsey Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomist, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lyndsey Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern. Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and of course, it is the Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. And a little note, I was talking to Tyler in the break, and those amazing yields he was talking about on his corn crop, well, just so happened the standout was a Pioneer Seeds Canada variety. So there you go. There you have it. Okay, it's time to chat with Murray Froebe at Homewood, Manitoba. How are you, Murray?
Doing well, Lyndsey. Yeah, it's actually, we have school council today in our area, and it is our first day of being white outside, so go figure. It's some welcome moisture in our area, and school buses have stopped.
Okay, now hang on a second. I get that it snowed. Was it really that bad, or could the buses have run? Because sometimes I think they're a little premature on these things.
I think you're right. Back in the days, right?
Right.
You're a little bit younger than I am, but of course those school buses would have run, but with any ice on the roads, they were canceled today. So everybody's adjusting to winter, and I think a lot of the prairies this week, it's a common denominator where welcome moisture has hit the prairies, but at the same time, winter is coming.
Well, it does.
Has come.
Yeah, it shows up eventually. There's not much we can do about it. All right. Now, welcome moisture for sure. Manitoba's had kind of an interesting growing season. How did it wrap up? How did the crops end up faring through it? I've heard disappointing canola, but pretty good for some others. So how did it shape up for Homewood, Manitoba?
Yeah, thanks. Well, Carmen area has actually been, we're very, very fortunate. We started the year last spring going into dry conditions, thinking it was going to be a dry year, a lot of minimum till practices, even zero till in our area was going forward, but then it started raining, of course, in May and June, and we got a lot of rain in those periods. Actually, through the whole growing season, we got 21 to 24 inches, which helped a lot of our crops later. And with that, some of the crops were stunted, like the canola and our edible beans at the start of the year, and some low spots were lost, and then obviously crop was postponed or set back due to the moisture. But all in all, we've had a great year. Bins are full, and the final wrap was it actually turned dry in August and September and October, and a lot of field work is done, and crop is off and in great quality, and a lot of full bins in our area.
Okay, not bad. I don't want to, say it was amazing, but it sounds pretty good, Murray.
Yeah, like we're in our 28th year of soybeans at our farm, and it's been the best year ever. Soybeans can handle water, of course, better than the earlier part of the season than canola. And then we did get in our area, the 2 3/4 inches in August, which any August rainfall or late July rainfall, if it bleaches the wheat, potentially that's in the benefit of all the soybeans. And we're seeing really big seed size in our soybeans as we process soybean seed here. And that seed size and seed set on the plants have made these amazing yields. And there's a lot of 60 bushel crops, even mid 60s, high 60s in our area. That's incredible.
That is incredible.
And Lyndsey, we're not Ontario or Little Iowa. This is the prairies. This is Manitoba.
I know that. Okay, that is incredible. Like I'll be honest with you. There are some fields around here of soybeans that did not do that well. So I think you probably outdid yourself, for sure. So that is pretty. And okay, so for those who don't know, though, I think let's back up a second. Your farm grows 6 different crops, which for Ontario is almost, well, it's potentially more than double what some farms grow. What is the most challenging thing when you're figuring out rotations for those 6 crops and figuring out where everything's going to go every year?
Well, half our land is on a bit lighter soil, so that at least opens the door to think about edible beans. And then half our farm is on more Osborne clay or Red River clays. So that's where, of course, where crop choice is limited on no edible beans or perhaps would be poor yielding soybeans on those fields as well. So it's like, we grow cereals, we grow oats, wheat, like mostly just hard red spring wheat, a bit of CPS as well, and then corn. And then for oil seeds, we grow soybeans and then canola, and then edible beans on some of our lighter ground.
That's a lot.
And how we figure out the rotations, there'll be a cereal, and then obviously an oil seed or pulse crop in the case of our edible beans, and then another cereal after that, and then how we rotate. And we put a lot of our corn on our lighter soils as well, and just have some amazing corn yields. It's just been incredible. A lot of space had to be found at the tail end of the season. Even some corn came off close to dry at 16%.
Yeah. I've heard certainly that late warm dry weather really did help save on drying costs for sure, but did create a bit of another issue in that everything was kind of ready all at once, and there's definitely been quite a few who have been tight for space or trucks have been in short supply trying to get things moved and make room for everything, which again, good problem to have, but definitely still a challenge when you're trying to get crops off before things like snow.
Yeah, and then also we did start the season kind of thinking of dry side. Then we had this 21 to 24 inches of rain on our land base. And then, we ended the season dry. So a lot of drainage work got done for guys thinking about drainage again this past summer. But then also started thinking, is it turning dry again? So some, min-till practices are thought about, as well as we're just starting to see strip-till operations for those that are in row crop starting as well. So it is kind of turning more Nebraska thinking for our area in southern Manitoba.
Mm-hmm. So do you guys do strip till already, or is it one of the things that's sort of like, let's see where it goes?
Yeah, we're doing a couple neighbors have strip till units, and we're interested in seeing and perhaps work with them. They get a really nice strip till. It is a big capital cost, and there's even some talk of farmers working together and sharing that equipment, because strip tilling in the fall is definitely the best way to do it on our soil type.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's a pretty smart idea. Definitely some farmers around or in Ontario, southern Ontario, that do that. When it comes to some of those capital purchases, it's always nice when you can spread it over as many acres as possible. So that can work.
Especially finding a farm that's in similar mentality as yours, and they're sharing that cost of iron with another farm and then making it work.
Yeah.
So we're not there yet, but
looking at it.
But just observing what's going on, and work with guys on a custom basis right now.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, my question of the week is looking at 2025, and with 6 crops in the lineup, you have a lot to choose from. But what do you predict? And there's no prize for winning this one, Murray, but give it your best shot. What do you predict will be your most profitable crop for 2025?
It's all margins a little tighter now with still fairly fairly high fertilizer prices and, of course, lower crop prices. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm towards corn in our area, as well as oats, which had equally high yields as well. Probably see an increase in those acres as well as soybean acres, just given the fact that we've had some fall moisture here now and just the yields that we just had. So between those three crops, of course, edible beans are always fairly profitable, but are very sensitive to the growing conditions and the risk factor. And we even had one crop insurance claim on edible beans this past year. So when you file your crop insurance claims, it always puts a kind of a thought in your head of like, this crop isn't doing as well as the other ones.
Yeah. Okay. So, Murray, what's cool about this is no farmer has said the same crop. So I love that. It really does show that you need to know your area, right? You need to know your fields and what grows well on your farm.
Yeah, I'd say we're processing soybeans today, Lyndsey, and the moisture that we've had is hampering our processing business, but at the same time, it's kind of sealing the deal, I think, on some soybean seed sales for those retailers. And I can see soybean acres definitely increasing, and there's a lot of enthusiasm towards soy here in the at least the eastern prairies, the way things are going. And if fertilizer prices stay high, it will definitely, soybean acres will grow instead of canola, just given average to below average. Or just, there's the feeling canola just wasn't up to expectations with some farms.
Yeah, I hear that. Lots of disappointment out there. All right, Murray, we'll leave it at that. Thanks so much for making time for me today. We're going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with more of the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, right here on RealAg Radio, right after this quick break.
Meet new Husky Pre-Herbicide, Koch's apex predator. Fight back against the toughest broadleaf weeds with Western Canada's first Group 27 herbicide for pre-burn and pre-emergent applications in cereals. A potent addition to Roundup, Husky Pre delivers fast-acting and reliable early-season control of broadleaf weeds, including resistant species. If you're tired of all bark, no bite with your cereal pre-burn, ask your local retailer for Husky Pre-Herbicide today. Always read and follow label directions.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com. I'm the host of The Word, and I love doing The Word. I love the questions. I love the challenges. I love having to apply agronomics to all over the globe and areas outside of my normal jurisdiction. Also, I love the feedback the most, where growers challenge me, tell me about their plot results, help me to learn. The Word, absolutely the best part of my day.
If you're serious about agriculture, RealAg's got you covered.
For over 10 years, we've listened to and shared what producers have to say about everything from policy to agronomy from coast to coast.
Keep up with the latest in Canadian agriculture at RealAgriculture.com through daily newsletters, and check out our YouTube channel.
Thanks for joining us in the RealAg community as we continue to cover and serve North American agriculture.
To RealAg Radio here on this Wednesday, November 20th. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and it is a very special Wednesday, Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada and the Pioneer brand canola with Optimum Glide, the highest yielding glyphosate-tolerant trait on the market. What's next in canola happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada for more. It's time to jump now to Saskatchewan, and we've got Jim Wickett of Rosetown on the line. How are you, Jim?
Good, really good.
Oh, really good. That's exciting.
You bet.
Does that mean that it has snowed or there has been rain? Do you have moisture?
We had a little rain last week. I wouldn't say it amounted to very much, and then our first snow happened the other night. So we got cover now.
Yep. That's okay. That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, a lot of fertilizer went on, and a lot of guys getting a little antsy about nothing over top of it, so this should alleviate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, always feels good when there's some put the fields to bed with a bit of a snow cover. That's
you bet.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
So how did the season turn out for you? What do you grow there out in Rosetown?
Oh, we're big durum area, and those yields were, some of the best that the guys have ever had.
Okay.
But we're also a big lentil area, and those were some of the worst. Lots of zeros, single-digit stuff there. Just too wet in June for those crops. And then oilseeds were kind of right down the middle. There was some really good, some not quite as good, but by and large, everybody was pretty happy with that.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we say too much moisture in June, we know lentils are finicky. I've heard said.
Yep.
Some people will call them their least favorite crop to grow. Like what's the difference between too wet and just enough?
This year, we were sitting with really good moisture, and we just had a really nice rain, and then a storm come through there and dropped like 2.5 inches on it real quick, and water laid, and a little bit of root rot set in and whatnot, and there they went.
There they went. Reasons why we don't grow them in other places of the Western.
Yeah, yeah, and we're really struggling. There's going to be a lot of guys out of them, myself included. Just need a break from them to maybe get some of this disease issue in the soil out of the. Yeah. Give it a rest.
Yep. And do you suspect it's a Phantomyces, or have you confirmed that, or is it just root rots in general?
It's probably mostly. I haven't. I didn't do any confirmation this year. I have in the past, and I mean it was identical to past issues. So everybody's kind of assuming that. Yeah.
It is, for anyone who doesn't know, hard to say, hard to spell. Even worse on yield, a Phantomyces. It's a very tough disease to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it affects the crop; it kills the crop. Like it just turns yellow and dies.
Yeah.
So, and it spreads. So, it just keeps moving through the field. You can see it. You can put markers up, and it'll just move to the next plant and the next and the next, and just keeps going through your field.
Yeah. Wild. It's a tough one. Now, as far as, so some middle of the road, durum did well. How has moving grain been? Is that usually something you do in the winter anyway, or just given all the port strikes and railway strikes and all sorts of unrest we had, sort of leading up to now, has everything been all right where you are?
Yeah, we've had no shortage of trains. In fact, they've been scrambling last minute to get product in to fill trains. We're kind of blessed a little bit because our durum's very heavy, and I think they're doing some blending at the port with some of the lighter stuff. So they've had good pricing and really good movement.
Sweet. That's a nice problem to have. That one.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so there's lots of 66, 68-pound bushels here.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Now, looking forward, when do you typically sit down and crunch numbers? Do you do it, right as harvest wraps? Do you wait till the winter months and you're bored, or when do you usually sit down and start to, really work on your budgets?
It's kind of an ongoing process, but I know, like I'm doing some, my year end is the end of this month. So, kind of looking at things as to where things line up and doing some projections for next year and try to figure, just kind of where I want to be and what I want to grow. Mm-hmm. With lentils not going to be in my rotation, it's the first time in my farming career of 38 or 39 years that I haven't had them in the rotation. So that's going to be a bit of a head scratcher for me because it's always nice. We get going in August and kind of stretches out the workload.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, I mean, the idea would be, I guess, in that decision-making process, so there's the harvest management component for sure. There's the input component. There's the rotation component. So which one Do you try and swap it out for something that's early as well? Is that the most important component, or how are you going to make that call?
In my head right now, it's a long ways till I'm sitting in the drill, but I'm looking at, probably putting some barley in a little bit earlier, and trying to get that going. And then we'll kind of go from there. And I kind of go by feel, so.
Yeah. We so in the latest Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index, we asked about sort of input costs and cutting costs and working through those budgets. My question this week sort of relates to that, and the fact that you've been doing at least some of this thinking. My question is, what do you think, as of right now anyway, will be your most profitable crop in 2025 based on budgeting?
In 2025? Oh, boy. Probably Durham, but you know what? I mean, it depends on the growing season. If we get rain at the wrong time there, that's a finicky crop as far as, whether it holds grades, or if you get some bad weather at harvest, you can go south there. Mustard is one. I'm not sure where that's going to be. Most of the buyers are kind of in that in-between. They're not quite sure what's going to go on in Europe. A lot of those tariffs are starting to come on, and they're going to increase. So does that mean we have more demand or less? And flax is kind of in the same boat. So, flax is sitting, last time I checked, around that $17 mark, and that's not super profitable. It's doable, but it depends on Europe.
Yeah,
and depends on our acres. Yeah,
flax is one of those ones that when it goes up, it's quite lovely, but you might wait a while. That's all. Yeah. If
you're heavy on flax when it goes up, you look pretty smart.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Yeah, like you planned it all along.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And mustard's kind of in the same boat. You can look like a genius or not too bright.
Well, no one needs to know what's in the bins, though, Jim. So
yes,
yeah, that's
exactly,
right. You just sell it when you look smart. Do it that way. It'll be fine. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. So I like that list. It's a good list. And we'll see where it goes. No one's going to hold you to these. So it's just a feeling. Yeah. So no worries. All right, Jim. Have a great week. Thanks for joining me on the Farmer Rapid Fire.
You betcha. Thank you.
Right on. Okay, it is time. We're going to leave Saskatchewan. We're going to head to Alberta right here on the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada, right here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. Joining me today, Mike Schaefer, Field Sales Manager with New Seed. Why should a grower in the upper Midwest be looking at adding the omega-3 canola production system to their lineup?
From a program perspective, we've got delivery windows, which growers asked for. They want to have more control on when they bring their bushels in. There's premiums associated with each window. There is a 10-bushel Act of God on this contract. The Act of God does not exist a whole lot anymore. We've got an early commit program where you pick up $1.50 with an ITG signed up by December 5th. We really appreciate our grower base, and returning growers will pick up another $1 a hundredweight. We've got a crop input incentive, anywhere from $15 to $20 per acre, depending on the amount of acres that you do it. And that is a check back to you during or shortly after the growing season.
Growers in the upper Midwest, where can they go for more information?
A quick Google search, omega-3 canola. There's a box there that you can get an interest form filled out, and then that gets fired off to us FSMs, get you in touch with the right people.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host for the day, Lyndsey Smith, and it is a very special Wednesday edition of the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. We started in Ontario, hopped to Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and now it is time to head on over to Alberta. We travel now to Westlock, or near Westlock, Alberta. And I've got John Guelly on the line. John, how are you?
I am really good, and actually I am right in downtown Westlock right now.
Look at that. The bustling metropolis of Westlock. That's pretty
great. It's amazing. All the buses and trains going by. It's
Everybody,
crazy.
go check it out. How did the growing season treat you, John?
Not too bad. We were probably overall about average. Our wheat was a little bit over average, and our canola and malt barley were a little bit below. But the malt barley all got accepted as malt, so we'll call it a win.
Yeah, that is okay. What is the toughest part of growing malt?
Well, the toughest part, I guess, is probably getting it off and not having too high a protein and not having too much chit in it.
What is chit for those listening that do not know what a chit is?
Yeah, chit is basically sprouting. But it's not necessarily external sprouting. It can be internal sprouting. So you can have chit and they can still grow it in the malt house, just that it has a limited shelf life.
Oh.
So they got to deal with it within a couple months after harvest.
Right. So I would assume you could have it rejected based on chitting, but also, or does it just often sort of adjust the price?
Yeah, it can affect the price. Usually it's a grading thing, and, if they can get chit or barley that doesn't have high chit, well, they prefer that. In fact, high chit is actually very good for IPA malt. So everybody that drinks the IPAs, keep doing it.
Keep at it. Do your part. Choose an IPA. Yeah. Help John and other Alberta farmers growing malt barley. Very cool. Okay. And now,
like a lot of things farming, it's about relationships, right? So if your quality isn't quite as high, and you have a good relationship with your maltster or your elevator agent or your crusher, some amazing things can happen with a good relationship.
Sometimes it's really important not to burn those bridges.
Yes, very important.
Yeah. Now, on the too high protein side, does that mean... Now, obviously, we can add protein or add nitrogen to adjust protein, but does that mean you have to be very choosy on your fields to make sure they don't have too much background nitrogen? How does that work?
Typically, who puts more nitrogen on than they use in a year, I guess, unless you have a really dry year. But yeah, I'm very cautious how much nitrogen I'll put on. I'll grow it on any of my fields. Like I've got a strict 3-year rotation between wheat, barley, and canola, and I'll use any of my fields, but I really hold back on the nitrogen, which from a cost side is really attractive. But it's nice to have it just enough nitrogen so it doesn't fall over, and that usually leads well into protein. So, you got to be a little bit cautious about it.
Yeah. Okay. One of those times where more is not better.
Yes, definitely not.
Yeah.
I think it goes with any cereal. I'd rather have it standing in a few less bushels than extra bushels and laying on the ground.
Yeah. Well, frankly, nobody likes having to harvest that either. But with malting barley, that's like, then you've got sprouting issues, or then you've got like all sorts of other bad things that happen. Not good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, and how did harvest go? Like the actual season?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, because compared to last year, it was fantastic. Back in 23, when we were taking the malt off, we were making ruts everywhere. And before everybody throws anything at me, it was a very small area here. We got a whole ton of rain in August, right at harvest time. And it was a very stressful harvest, getting everything off and taking bits here and there and going around wet spots and coming back 2 days later when it dried out a little and making me make another round around the wet spot. And,
oh, goodness.
Yeah, that was stressful. This year went very smooth. We had really good weather. We weren't really wet. We were actually dry. And, much smoother, much easier.
No kidding. That is good. So then, thinking about sort of where you're at right now, how does the moisture outlook look?
We are probably drier than we'd like to be, but in this area, we typically get more rain than we need. So I'm not on the alarm, especially with 23 harvest still not too far back in my head. we always get some snow, and not that snow usually adds up to much because the ground's frozen and it usually runs off when it melts, but no panic here, but we're definitely on the drier side.
Okay.
For us.
Now, tell me about weeds, because we haven't talked about this a lot, I think, on the Rapid Fire, but I'm thinking about like planning and all those sorts of things. Do you have a problem weed that if you could wave a magic wand and make it go away, which weed would it be?
That's a good question. I've got a couple that really drive me crazy. Wild buckwheat.
So what is it, that it just won't die? Is it that it tangles and everything? Why do we hate wild buckwheat?
Yeah, the tangling is a real problem, and it seems like it's not there, and then all of a sudden, 2 weeks after spraying, there it is. It's like, comes out of nowhere. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. No, I believe you. It is a jerk. Kochha's on everybody's list, but I hate cleavers for similar reasons. Like,
yes.
Yeah, they're gross. So, and did you know, I did not know this, but here in Ontario, there is something called bed straw that is basically cleavers that aren't sticky.
Really?
Really. It is fascinating to me. Anyway, still annoying, just less annoying. Now, John, my question of the week actually has nothing to do with weeds. Or maybe it does, because I suppose that plays into things. But we are thinking about, saving dimes, pennies. We don't have those anymore. Saving our dollars, given lower commodity prices. But I want to try and keep it positive. And so what would you say in thinking about 2025, which do you anticipate to be your most profitable crop next year?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say malt barley again.
Okay.
It seems to happen more often than not. I always always thought canola was my cash crop, and that's where I'm going to make my fortune and retire. But mainly because of, like we talked earlier, reduced nitrogen requirements, its input costs are a lot lower. So profit-wise, I'm thinking it may be the one again next year.
Mm-hmm. Let's face it, profitability is cost and, of course, income. So if your costs are lower, it can still be more profitable, even if it's maybe not, as big a bushels like these or as high a price. These are important things. Okay, well, I'll have you know there's no prize for getting it right or wrong. I hope they're all profitable, but that's maybe too much to hope for. But we can try. Right, John? We can try.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on those markets and we'll see how it goes. And let's hope we've got the growing season that allows for such things. All right. John, have fun in downtown Westlock today. Enjoy your time.
I will.
Okay.
Take care.
All right. You too. Bye. All right. So we have been to Bloomfield. We have gone to Homewood. We've been at Rosetown and now Westlock. And it is time to take a quick break and head back to Ontario. We're going to be talking to Greg Stopps with Pioneer Seeds Canada. I've got some questions about tar spot and, of course, this monster corn crop that has come in here in Ontario and sounds like actually did quite well in Manitoba as well. All right. A quick note, if you've got any feedback on today's show, you can give us a call, 1-855-776-6147, or, of course, you can reach out to me, Smith at RealAgriculture.com. I do try to answer just about every question or concern or idea that comes through, so we do our best. I'm sorry if I don't get back to all of you, but I do try. But if you've got an idea of a neighbor, let's say, who maybe should be on the Farmer Rapid Fire, we'd love to add them, get their permission to do so, because frankly, this whole show is just better when we've got voices from across Canada. So get in touch. All right, let's take a break. I'll be back with the Farmer Rapid Fire right after this.
Advanced canola trait technology is here. And it's soon to be the talk of the town. Optimum Glide delivers excellent yield potential and agronomic trait performance. Improved crop safety. Enhanced weed control. and a wider window of application. You're going to want to see this. Learn more at OptimumGlide.ca.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
Right, welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, channel 147, Sirius XM. It is the Farmer Rapid Fire, a special one here on a Wednesday, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. And with Pioneer Seeds Canada, I've got with me Greg Stopps out of Ontario. Greg, how are you?
Great, Lyndsey. Thanks so much for having me back on.
Now, well, as we've heard on today's show, as well as, of course, just on the landscape, some pretty phenomenal corn yields out there. What are you hearing from your growers?
Yeah, we're seeing really record-breaking yields in a lot of areas. There's definitely some variability where you go, but most people, when it comes to corn, are pretty excited about how the fall went. The area that I cover, kind of along Lake Huron, has been a little bit ahead of maybe other parts of the province. We're basically wrapped up and done. It's hard to find a cornfield still out there in my travels, but tremendous yields. Growers were excited to get it off relatively dry this year in arguably drier and better harvest conditions than we typically expect.
Which is always nice when you're not going to leave the field a mess and maybe save on some drying costs. Those are always good things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, we did see, though, and this is maybe something I want to spend a bit of time on today, tar spot, maybe not the yield robber this year it could have been, but definitely, a lot of growers asking questions about stalk strength and integrity, what impact this disease could have had. What are you hearing on the tar spot question? And then let's talk about maybe what we can do for next year. But what are you hearing out there?
Sure. Yeah. Tar spot, for the area that I cover, again, it's finally moved in and really had a bit of an impact, right? We've seen it and heard about it south of London before in southwestern Ontario, where we've seen those big yield discrepancies, where you've seen the more tolerant genetics kind of stand up and show visible differences as well as yield differences, where we've seen fungicide management really kind of show big differences. Even between some of the different fungicides, you've seen differences. This year, though, tar spot has moved north of London, has really settled in. We've seen it at high pressure. Thankfully, I think reflective in the yields, we didn't see a whole lot of yield come out of our crop because of tar spot, but we saw those effects, those stalk integrity, late season stalk strength, and late season, I mean, we were harvesting in the middle of October, and so we weren't really late season. And had our fall been any different and we had to harvest later, I think we would have seen even more of that stalk strength really come out. We were maybe blessed by some of the dry conditions that we had in August and September, some of those same kind of drought conditions that probably punished a bit of our bean yields in southwestern Ontario, really benefited our corn crop by facilitating good dry down. And while tar spot was present, I believe, as you look at the environment and you see how little leaf wetness we had, I could walk into a crop or into a plot or something like that at 9 a.m. and not be soaking wet. That's rare for our environment. Yeah. But the dry conditions really squeezed that disease triangle on the environment side and likely slowed tar spot up. So it did have an effect, but probably not as big of an effect or as rapid of an effect that we know can be associated with tar spot. So we're seeing it out there. We're seeing huge pressure from it. It's here. It's going to stay. It's going to overwinter. It's going to potentially threaten in years to come, especially earlier with early infection if the environment is there. And we've got to start thinking through that a little bit more, because I think we did honestly escape some of what we could have seen from a yield loss standpoint, certainly in the area north of London. There are pockets where we did see that yield loss, though. I don't want to ignore those for the growers who definitely experienced that. But we all have to start treating it that way in our management and in the decisions we make this winter.
So, and on that decision, there are genetic differences to this disease, but being relatively new, how do we answer that question as to making a choice on hybrid if tar spot is a concern?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to pay attention to the tar spot scores that are out there. At Pioneer, we're very confident in our ability to score tar spot. We've been kind of honing in on that within our research organization. We're really proud of the fact that our genetics and our germplasm show really pretty good tolerance to tar spot, but even then, in our commercial lineup of our hybrids, we have a range of performance differences. We try to be transparent about that, and it's important to talk to your rep about kind of those things. There are some hybrids that are exceptional on tar spot, and those are the ones that I'm going to gravitate to if I'm really nervous about tar spot or I've seen big yield differences in the past. But that isn't the only thing that's going to drive my hybrid decisions too, right? I mean, I've got to consider other things with agronomics, and what I would say is most of our lineup that performs really well compared to the industry, even some of those lower scores, may have things that are really attractive to fit your own operation. What you want to keep in mind then is that you have to partner that selection of genetics with management. And I would be very careful to say that that's not just on the stuff that scores lower on tar spot. You want to consider management on the stuff that performs really well on tar spot too. And how I like to kind of frame that for growers is, management and specifically fungicide application and genetics go hand in hand with tar spot. I would maybe at this point argue that fungicide piece does a lot of the heavy lifting for protecting initial yield development from kind of R1 to R3. I'd argue that it doesn't give you a huge amount of ROI beyond R3 at this stage, right? If you're applying the right product, though, you can do a lot of the heavy lifting in that time frame. And then your genetic tolerance really takes off and helps get you over the finish line from there, right? So partnering really good management doesn't with kind of correct hybrid genetic decision is really important, right? If you've got a hybrid that's a little more susceptible or a little less tolerant to tar spot, right, then you really have to focus in on the right timing, the right products, the right rates, and even consider potentially if the disease is going to continue at high pressure, maybe you need to plan for a second application. Partnering the right genetics, though, or really good tolerant genetics with the right management is also important. It's just you'll probably be able to get away with one application and then kind of let the genetics take over from there, right, would be the hope. I don't want to say that, you should never be able to just select the right genetics and forget the management portion of it, because this disease is not like that. It will, under high enough pressure, overwhelm even the most tolerant of genetics.
And as we've touched on, and as you mentioned, that environment component of that disease triangle, we typically do see far more moisture at a time, that we didn't see this year. So as bad as it was, it could have been so much worse. And a more average year next year might mean way higher pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't remember a year in southwestern Ontario where middle of October we've seen fields come off at 19%, right? So normally our environment challenges us a lot more. Normally we're leaving more ruts in the field than we'd like. This has been a relatively unique year that I'm thankful for, but I can't expect going forward.
Well, that does it for today's episode of RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. Thank you, of course, to Greg Stopps with Pioneer Seeds Canada. And thank you to all our farmers, to Tyler, to Murray, to Jim, and to John. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. I'll be back Friday for the Issues panel, and Sean Haney will be back in the driver's seat tomorrow. Cheers, everybody. Have a great night.